Hi everyone, welcome to my session on Excel formula auditing, and I'm going to use my RefTreeAnalyser for that. My name is Karel Pieterse. I'm a Dutch Excel consultant and I'm running a company called JKP Application Development Services, and my website is jkp-ads.com. I encourage you to go there because it contains a lot of Excel articles and free downloads. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to shortly discuss the built-in Excel formula auditing tools, and then I'll spend most of my time discussing my RefTreeAnalyser add-in because that greatly helps you with auditing your formulas. Before we even start looking at the tracing of dependents and precedents using Excel tools, let's just do a couple of tips while you're editing a formula. So I'm going to click in the formula bar here. And notice this little tooltip down here. Now, my first tip is that you can drag that tooltip out of the way. So if you want to view those column headers properly, just drag it a bit out of the way. Secondly, you can click each of the items here to highlight that portion in your formula. So if I click on lookup array, it's going to highlight the entire lookup reference in the XLOOKUP function. What's a little known fact is that while we're in here, we can press the F5 function key on the keyboard, which is the Go To button, and that will bring up this Go To dialog, which already highlights the cell range on the Data tab, cells A2 to A239, which are the cells that this table reference actually point to. If I now click OK, I get taken to that location. I can do the same with the return array. I click on the link to make sure that that piece is highlighted. Then I press the F5 key again, and then I just click OK, and my price range is selected. Now you got to be careful because you might be tempted to do the same for the F30 over here. So I've clicked lookup value here. It highlights F30, but if I now click the F5 button, it does mention F30 in the go-to dialog, but it doesn't include the tab name, because remember, we started editing this formula on the Visualize tab. And if I now click OK, I am taken to cell F30, but it's going to be cell F30 on the data sheet. And on top of that, it also changes my formula. So beware if you're clicking on the links in the tooltip and then hitting the F5 key. Beware that you might be taken to a different worksheet than you're expecting it to take you to. So if you're doing this, always make sure you cancel your editing to make sure your formula isn't changed. So I demonstrated to you how you can use the formula bar and the tooltip that's below it to navigate the elements of a formula. So let's do the same using my RefTreeAnalyser add-in. Click on the tab, click on precedents, and you can also click the shortcut key that's Control-Shift left square bracket. And it will open this dialog. And by default, the precedents section of the dialog is highlighted. And I can use my arrow keys to navigate to the first element in the formula, F30. And notice how it immediately selects that cell F30 and highlights it in the formula that's displayed over here. If I continue to use arrow down, I'm getting taken to the next section of the formula, which is the widget column in the table prices. And finally, if I press arrow key once more, it will give me the price column. So that is a really quick way to navigate through the references inside a formula. Of course, RefTreeAnalyser can also trace dependents, and it opens up the same dialog, but this time in dependence mode. And again, using the arrow keys, you can navigate through the different dependents that it finds. In this case, there's only one, namely the F8 cell. And finally, another thing I wanted to show you is how RefTreeAnalyser enhances what the built-in trace dependents and trace precedents arrows give you. For example, the trace precedents allow you to trace precedents on other worksheets by double clicking on this small dashed line here, and it will show you the references to the other worksheets. But it doesn't show them to you in their original values. It shows them in A1 cell reference mode. What's problematic is that if you have a long file name and or a long worksheet name, the cell addresses are out of view in this box, and you cannot make this box wider. And even in the reference box down here, this B2 to B239 disappears out on the right hand side. So you have to actually click in here and then use F2 and the right arrow key to get to the end of the address. We can do better than that, so let's remove those arrows, go to RefTreeAnalyser and use the Visualize button. And that draws a number of objects on your worksheet. For every external reference, it draws a blue box and tells you where it points to. And if I click on that box, it takes me to that reference. So this is the widgets column. And if I click the widget columns, it takes you back to the original location. And here is the price column. If I click that, it takes me to the price column, and I can click to go back again. And then that cell F30 is outside of the viewable area of this worksheet, which is why RefTreeAnalyser has added a small rectangular box that displays the value of cell F30. And again, we can click on this box to take us to cell F30 to look at it in real life. And we can click cell F30 to go back to the analyzed cell. And then, of course, we can click this clear arrows button to remove all the stuff that we just added. And by the way, if we save this file, RefTreeAnalyser will automatically remove all those boxes for us. What I find a useful feature too is a trace errors button. The built-in option that Excel has here is the error checking option, and it allows you to trace error. But it gives you a bunch of arrows that are not particularly helpful. So what I prefer is using my built-in RefTreeAnalyser button. It's called Trace Errors. And what it does is it opens that same Trace Precedents dialog. So let's click that button. And what we see here is only the references that lead to an error. And it keeps moving down the precedence trail until it either finds no more precedents and just errors. Apparently, the root cause of that NA error that we have in cell F10 is caused by cell F7. Another thing that RefTreeAnalyser greatly helps you with is finding references that are inside objects. For example, this chart here has references to cells. If you click on any of the series, you'll see the series formula pointing to cells A3 and A4 on this worksheet. But on the Formulas tab, there's no way to click that Trace Precedents button. RefTreeAnalyser allows that by clicking the Object Refs button. If you click that, it pops open an analysis dialog that lists all of the objects inside your Excel file. So it does not limit itself to just the object that you're on. It's going to list all of them. Now, if you click on a name of an object, like for example, chart 1 here, it will select chart 1 on the worksheet where it is. Same goes for this one. And it will show you that in the Y values of the series formula, there's a reference to the cells A3 and A4. Similarly, it will also tell you where Power Queries are pointing at. So there's this query called Query Table Data 1, which actually takes its data from cell A3 to B22, so from this table here. Similarly, Query Table Data 2 takes its data from the Data 2 tab, from the table Data 2. And if we scroll down here, we can see that there are all sorts of other items that are analyzed, such as spark lines, conditional formatting rules, validation formulas, and all sorts of controls like the checkbox, the drop down, the list box. And it lists both their link cell and their list fill range if applicable. And last but not least, also, of course, it will highlight what your pivot tables are using. So this pivot table over here has both a SQL statement and a connection string that it lists here. What makes this useful is that you can click the report button and it will list all of this on a separate worksheet. Another pretty useful functionality of RefTreeAnalyser is its ability to trace circular references. You've probably seen this dreaded dialog. Excel tries to highlight the circular reference by using precedence arrows. And if you go to the Formulas tab, you can click on the error checking button here, and it has highlighted circular reference and shows you which cells are involved according to Excel. But since I created this file, I know that there's actually more at play here. There's a circular reference within these 4 cells, and there's another circular reference within these 4 cells, and then we have the one that Excel highlighted. And also, there are 2 cells which are overlapped by all 3 circular references. So in reality, there are actually 3 circular reference chains, but Excel doesn't show you that. So let's go to the circular references button. And it will first ask me if I want to create a backup copy of the file first, because when RefTreeAnalyser does this analysis, it temporarily replaces formulas with values to do the analysis. So it's going to change your model. So hence the ability to create a backup before it starts doing its work. I checked this off because this is a demo file anyway. So by default, the circular reference dialog folds each of the circles into one node. You can make it expand by just pressing on the 2 button on your keyboard, and it will expand the tree to the second level of nodes so that you can see all of the circles. If you want to go back, you just press the 1 key on your keyboard and it will circle back to this. And if I now click my down arrow, it's going to highlight the first circle that it found, which is the center one, which Excel already highlighted by itself. And as you see here, there's a lot more precedent and dependent arrows here, pointing to the other cells that these 4 cells are using. The second circle is reached by pressing down arrow again, and the last circle similarly does it like this. And of course, you can go to the individual cells by pressing the right arrow key on the keyboard and just going down again. And that will traverse through the individual cells of each circle. What regularly happens to me is that I get sent a really complicated file with financials, and I want to know the structure of the file. So which worksheets are using information from which other worksheets? For that, there's this offsheet references button over here. And look how many tabs we have here. So I've already clicked that button here because it can take a while on larger models. And here my RefTreeAnalyser tries to visualize what worksheets point to what other worksheets. And if you click on a worksheet, it pops up a message box that shows you what this particular worksheet is using. So as it says, 435 cells on that worksheet refer to 5 other worksheets. So there's 59 cells that take their information from the JC control tab. There's 319 cells taking the data from group key financials and etc. And then there's 39 cells on 5 other worksheets, which take their information from the valuation and exit and return sheet. 14 cells on the JC control tab, 8 cells on the group key financials sheet, etc. And if that isn't enough, you can scroll down and look at this huge table, which will list all the counts between all the worksheets here. So the Corsac sheet and the group key financials have 200 cells pointing to each other. And since we're watching this complicated worksheet, let's also press the All Sheet Statistics button. It shows you a count of the sheet that is working through right now, and then when it's done, it'll produce a summary sheet, this one over here. And if you sort that sheet on the calc time column over here, largest to smallest, it automatically gives you the slowest worksheet of your file at the top. Sometimes, however, you need more detail. For example, you want to know which particular formula is causing the slowness of your workbook. For that, we have the Report Formulas button. And what the tool is doing right now is analyzing all the worksheets and taking all the unique formulas from each and every worksheet and timing how long it takes to calculate the cells with that formula. And as you see, it takes a while to get there, but here we are. And it lists them in this report with a separate section for each worksheet. So if you scroll down, you'll see all of the worksheets come by. And this one too can be sorted by the calculation time, which will give you the slowest cell at the top, which sometimes is surprisingly a really simple formula, because that might mean that a lot of other cells are actually tied to this cell. And the last report I wanted to mention is the report function counts, which just gives me a count of each and every built-in Excel function that has been used in the model. And here we see that the sum function is the most used function in this model. And this is a useful list to go through if you're looking at potential functions that might be slow, like the SUMIF function, or maybe the match or VLOOKUP. Suppose you have a column of formulas and you want to know whether all the formulas in this column are the same. And with the same, I mean drag down. RefTreeAnalyser has a feature for that called Check Formulas. And what it does is it analyzes the current column for the formulas that it finds. And apparently in this column we have two distinct formulas. One that points to these cells, and then one that's only in this cell. So this immediately shows us that there's an issue with these two cells here. And what's happened here is if you move your arrow keys, move the cell pointer, you see that actually the formula in row 24 is identical to the formula in row 23, whereas the row number should be increasing. In addition, the formula in cell C38 has been copied and pasted as values. For large files, having a table of contents is a really good idea. It does help you as a starter for your manual. RefTreeAnalyser has a button for that called Table of Contents. And when you click it, it will analyze the file and look for objects that are in the file. So not only does it do worksheets, it also does tables, charts, external links, and etc. It's only going to list the ones that it finds in your workbook. So let me click OK and show you what it generates. So it gives us a worksheet containing that table of content and is divided into sections. So we have the sheets section, the external links section, and then we have charts. And each section has links to the appropriate areas. And there's one chart here, and that chart located on the output BP5 worksheet, which is here. We go F5 and go back. Each table in the table of content has a remarks column, which you can fill up, and that will be kept in sync with the worksheet in question or the object in question. So if I put a remark here and I click the table of content button again, it's going to completely remove this table of content, but it will remember the remarks and put them back in place. So if I click it now, it will refresh it, and that remark 10 will go with the core sec sheet and come back, as you see here. Next to the table of content button, we have a button that allows you to quickly go to every sheet. And if there are tables, there's also a list of tables here. In this case, there are only the table of content tables, which I've added by clicking that table of content button. So that drop-down takes you to the respective table directly. Final thing to note about RefTreeAnalyser is that we have incorporated our free name manager add-in and our FlexFind add-in, which automatically gets updated when RefTreeAnalyser checks for updates, which it does every week. So name manager is there to manage range names in your file, And finally, we have the Flex Find button, which allows you to search in all kinds of different objects in Excel. So for example, let's search for the exclamation mark and check the objects box. And look how it finds the exclamation mark in all sorts of different objects in Excel, and how scrolling to those items in the Found Items box selects those items. So that wraps up my presentation on RefTreeAnalyser and formula auditing. Remember, RefTreeAnalyser is a free download at my website using this URL. But if you need more information, don't hesitate to contact me. Just use my email address info@jkp-ads.com and I'll reply as soon as I can.